What's up, everybody? Welcome in. It's Professor Broman. We're on Twitch. We're on YouTube at the same time. We're going to go over Luke's director's cut together. I'm going to try and read the whole thing. It's a lot of words, but let's get at it. Get it, it. Director's cut part 1. Hey, everyone. I wanted to try a little experiment with communication. Put together a longer look at where Destiny has been over the past few months and where it's heading next. I think it's important to take time to reflect on what's happened so we can show you where we're going. I'm calling this the director's cut based on how long this has ended up being. The key from this is maybe there's a better way to communicate than this giant wall of text. Let me know. I may also be doing it in a different format in the future. I will let you know. Today, we're going to talk about more than just the Destiny the game. We're going to talk about how we build Destiny and the effects that it can have on the team. Transparency about the game is important, but I also want to be transparent about the work required. Sound okay? That's rhetorical because the wall of text is coming. Since there's a lot changing and coming to Destiny 2 and New Light, we want Destiny 2 to be an amazing action MMO in a single evolving world that you can play anytime, anywhere with your friends. I want to click that, but that is just a link to the Vidoc. I'm going to keep referencing that all the time until it's true. And then I'm going to keep referencing it until it's good enough. 10 thoughts on the last 6 months. Looking back, overall, there are some things in the annual pass that worked well and some real things, real learnings for us along the way. The annual pass is a big transition for us. We've been moving away from DLC and trying to provide more ongoing reasons to play Destiny. I wanted to start the State of the Game series by stating how we got here. And largely focus on Season of the Drifter to near present day. We set up a calendar of content, showed you the plan early, and then delivered it. I dropped something. Apologies, chat. And then deliver on it. A lot of you love Destiny for the chase, on the way to improve your characters. Between the annual pass quest lines and events in between, the team did a great job providing stuff to do, items to chase, growing fat with strength, etc. Destiny's history has had many content droughts, but not this year. But the annual pass was harder on the team than we anticipated. The scope of what we delivered and the pace that we delivered it, the overall throughput of the annual pass took a toll on Bungie. I and many others had conversations throughout the years with team members who jumped from release to release about the grind of working on Destiny. Working on the game was starting to wear people down. Here is an example. This is so honest. During the annual pass, we invented new bespoke ways to earn rewards each season. Black Armory had bounties. Season of the Drifter had the Reckoning Machine. Season of Opulence had a Chalice. Each of these mechanics with their own lessons were valuable, but also put the team into an unsustainable development cycle. We need to develop a more systematic, standardized set of mechanics for progression to keep our teams healthier. We're going to take this problem on in Destiny 2 Year 3. We have a powerful sources problem. The game's weekly sources of power grew as Destiny grew with it. At times, this could feel like a chore. Each season brought in new powerful sources to optimize your character, and it meant that you were still maybe running 3 story missions every week or returning to the Dreaming City months after the first few magical trips from last fall. I feel like we need to do a better job of shifting powerful sources. We could explore things like changing the value of powerful sources to create new seasonal efficiencies, or retire some sources as we bring new ones into the game. Simply put, I wish we'd been able to curate more seasonal, do more seasonal curation of the game. Season of the Drifter thoughts, part 1. I like Gambit Prime. It's a great refinement to Gambit. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I'm with Luke. I like Gambit Prime. I think it's a blast. Matches end quicker, so it feels more efficient. Invading frequency feels lower, so you can collect and dunk. I think there's something cool about roles, although the requirements to get the full set to inhabit a role meant not enough folks got to appreciate the playstyle diversity. That In the future, we're going to make a choice. Gambit is the with Gambit, it's the Highlander of Gambits, Prime or Classic. Hang on. Queen, Princess of the Universe, okay? I thought it was something else. This isn't just about removing stuff in Destiny 2, but the game cannot grow infinitely forever. It's about focusing refinements and evolutions. What just happened? I tried clicking a link and it was a joke. It's about focusing refinements and evolutions to Gambit ecosystems. I think Gambit is sweet and it deserves more ongoing support. And we want to ultimately focus on the support or whichever mode ends up being the Highlander, because there can only be one. Okay, so the question here is, should it just be Gambit Prime or just be Gambit Classic? That said, we hear you, and not everyone is excited about a season focused entirely on one part of the game. Destiny is a game with breadth, and we agree that this season felt too specialized. Awesome. I love hearing that. That makes me excited. Season of the Drifter Thoughts Part 2. Let's talk about Reckoning, aka encounter design. The first time I used the Phoenix Protocol at home, I knew it was over. It's an exotic that refills my Well of Radiance and then refills itself as I slay. So I continue to place my well and stand here to be borderline invulnerable and deal tons of damage. Dado Video has great talks about Well of Radiance effect on PvE in the game. I wondered, how are we ever going to make content that fairly challenges players again? With Reckoning in the Season of the Drifter, we got a taste of what kind of content we would have to build to challenge protocol-wearing warlocks. Match-made encounters that accost you from all directions, plant snipers in the distance, and put players between a pincher attack of many whelps. Handle it. I wanted to link a thing here, but it's not T for teen, and giant bosses. Also, F you, taken night guy. This is what it had to be. We were breaking encounter rules left, right, and center on the Reckoning Bridge. No small part due to players with always active Wells of Radiance becoming invulnerable gods, holding 6 Infinity Stones at the same time. Damn, so Reckoning sucked because of Warlock Wells. In Reckoning, we set to build an activity that could be easy at Tier 1 and very challenging at Tier 3. We had an internal team here codenamed Velveeta. They were formed in the wake of Crota's End modem unplugging debacle to find the cheesiest things to do or use in the challenging PvE portions of the game. These players are some of our craftiest. Once Velveeta can get close to beating something or beat it outright, that becomes an important data point on our is this enough evaluation. We give them a bunch of tips like, here's how this works, can you beat it? And if they can, it's a good indicator the action team and Game Gear, action game and Game Gear are working together. Let's talk about encounter design. Generally, in activities, we expect players to compete alone. Dungeons in players expected to be completed alone. Dungeons, raids, 0-hour activities can play by a different set of properties. Or in match-made groups, there are a number of guidelines that we use to build them. 1, we don't want to spawn enemies behind the player. 2, we want players to play a game of taking space from the enemies. 3, we want players to have cover where their shields and health can recharge or where they can get smart using geometry. Movement, ability, and gunplay to dig enemies out of cover, make interesting decisions about target prioritization. We want players to be able to understand the space that enemies will come from, and if we're going to reverse the combat on players, spawn enemies behind them, we want to telegraph that. We use dropships, spawn clouds, audio cues, all kind of tricks to make sure that people are ready for reinforcements. As a player, as character power is dramatically increasing, more reasons on this later on, the encounter rules get thrown out the window. Okay, to summarize, this is fucking incredible, by the way, chat. I don't know how you feel about this, but this is really really awesome. To summarize, Destiny had sweet gear, and in order to create a challenge in the Reckoning, we broke a bunch of our encounter design philosophy. The sweet gear coupled with the encounter design meant the number of ways to efficiently progress was dramatically reduced. We want Destiny to be a game where you have choices for your character and build what you choose to do, funneling those choices down to only one in Reckoning is something we don't want to repeat. There's more about damage and player power sprinkled in this update, and even more on the rest. Last note, I think it's sweet when an activity challenges you to use something other than your favorite item. I don't think the whole game should work that way, but when it's time to bust some shields on Shanks in 0 hour, I had to use for that distant relation scout rifle in my vault. Okay. Makes sense. So essentially, when everyone said you can't complete Reckoning without a Warlock well, they were 100% correct. And if I ever told you that you were wrong, I'm sorry. Season of the Drifter thoughts, part 2, aka now let's talk about difficulty and touch on sandbox nerfs. I think this is a good comment, and I want this to be in the YouTube video out loud. I'm really glad Luke is being open with this. I'm a game design student, and I'm glad people outside of the industry understand the process behind some decisions. I think that sharing your design philosophy for your game helps players have a foundational standing point to judge your game. If you say, this is our design philosophy and goal set, then a player can accurately critique you by saying, listen, if your goal is to make me feel powerful, I don't. If your goal is to make me feel like I have options, I don't. And you told me that I was supposed to have those things. So can we have a discussion about how I get them back? Which is a way healthier discussion than F you, you ruined my game, I hate you. So like, bravo. I know there's a lot more to read, but I wanted to pause because I think that that's a really important thing to point out. This is the design philosophy and counter rules for the game, then this is how we should be looking at how encounters work, going forward. Season of the Drifter thoughts, part 3, aka now let's talk about difficulty and touch on sandbox nerfs. I just realized that my camera is a little weird. Hang on. There we go. I just started to talk about challenge and difficulty above and drifted to encounter difficulty, and it's all related. When the media would come play our Halo games for an event, we'd always recommend they play the game on Heroic. Heroic changed a bunch about Halo combat. It made enemy weapons more accurate, but not too accurate. Enemies would fire more frequently, which made you feel like a hero when you dodged them. And it increased projectile speed. Heroic lowered player outgoing damage, so enemies would survive longer, make it further through their behavior tree before appearing, and therefore appearing more intelligent. And there's more than going on. It's just a summary of the changes. But here's why we asked the media to play the game on the Heroic, because when the game is challenging, overcoming the challenge feels incredible. Important to note here, challenge is not universal. In an action game, challenge can be largely personal. One person's challenging might be easy to someone else. We've historically found the Destiny main campaigns is something we want to be easy. I think D2 campaign was actually too easy at times. I would agree. And as players push further into post-game, they're able to find more challenge. Across Destiny's history, we haven't had enough challenge deep in the end game, and that's definitely something we want to work on as we head towards fall 2019. Overcoming challenges is a huge part of what makes an action game's moment-to-moment engaging. Action games are a delicate balance of growing strong and the game rising up to push back, introducing new challenges that force you to become more powerful, master every element, and at their best, create the fist-pumping moment of celebration when you achieve victory. Galaxy Brain. But Destiny has an RPG component too. And the RPG component is about customization, optimization, and it's a way for players to choose how they overcome the world. The entire time we've been making Destiny, the action game and RPG have been fighting. It's a forever war. The RPG has the power to dramatically overcome the action game, and the action game has the power to render the RPG irrelevant. It is a line by nature Destiny will always have to straddle. In order to create challenging content during Season of the Drifter, we had to break a bunch of encounter rules, have exotics like the Phoenix Protocol basically functioning as a key, or hope you match with multiple Radiance Warlocks, which unlocks the success in the match-made encounter of the Reckoning. There's a really good video from Slayer Rage about this context of nerfs we made heading into the Season of Opulence. Those nerfs also saw Whisper of the Worm get its day in court. I would just like to say 2 times so far, Luke has pointed out community feedback videos as a point of reference. Those nerfs are also why the Whisper of the Worm got its day in court. If we could turn back time, we'd probably not run Whisper as the original Black Hammer infinite ammo design. However, considering the year before Destiny 2 had felt very restricted and power limited, I think we did the best we could with the knowledge and intuition we had last summer. Whisper was an outlier that let you stand at a safe distance in a pool that makes you borderline invulnerable, never having to reload or relocate for ammo, and allow players to deal piles and piles of damage on giant bosses who aren't threatening. That's not our fault. That's not your fault. It's ours. We're making some things too easy and allowing players to circumvent parts of the game. Mechanics that circumvent the ammo game, relocate to pick up ammo bricks, or completely ignore reload animations, a critical part of weapon tuning, are mechanics that create the kind of outliers that we ultimately have to tamp down on before the game spirals into boss health, the boss health version of the Reckoning bridges. The other significant set of changes we made in the game this time were the Super Snowball exotics, which, with as powerful as Destiny supers have become, they are, on a whole, dramatically more powerful than Destiny 1 supers. Using your super to recover your super is an amplification of player power that the challenge and difficulty game cannot keep up with, but we're going to talk about supers much later on. Difficulty and challenge are parts of mastery. There are more changes coming in Shadowkeep, buffs to things like scout rifles, nerfs to mechanics that circumvent ammo economy, refactoring the way damage stacking rules work. We're going to talk about all of that in our next episode. I hope you've been saving your scouts. I have been saving mine. Season of Opulence, Part 1. The pursuits tray is a caterpillar and a cocoon. The quest log is the beautiful butterfly. I've seen streams and videos of people beating activities in Destiny blindfolded. I cannot imagine developing the muscle memory and memorization to be good at Destiny with with the blast shield down. When things fundamentally change in a way that interrupts muscle memory and mastery, it's frustrating. The initial set of changes to the pursuits tray earlier this year did a few things that upsetted muscle memory, and it certainly didn't get as far as the team wanted for its initial release, and it didn't feel like an improvement over what existed. I felt like we started to redecorate your house but didn't finish. And sometimes that's how a live game can feel. The morning after the pursuits change went live, I talked to UI folks. They had Reddit open. Have you read it, Luke? No, I haven't. Please don't. They were crestfallen. Not just because the sometimes harsh feeling feedback, but because the team wanted to make something sweet that exceeded your expectations and met their own. None of those things happened. We wanted to try something different with pursuits. In a sense, we knew that we wanted this feature to where we wanted it to end up, and we wanted to take iterative steps to get there. I think that we're going to do a better job of ensuring that while we remodel your house, the potential of the renovation is clear in the game or via communication on the site. We want a quest log with great tracking that can help players prioritize what to do next. Oh, and this fall, bounties will be separated from quests, and PC players can assign a hotkey that takes them directly to the pursuits menu. Easy clap. Easy clap. This is a cool picture. Multiple Vanguard rewards, maybe daily and weekly. Or this has like an arrow. Maybe that's a repeatable quest. Repeatable. This could be daily. This could be weekly. We'll have to see. Season of Opulence Part 2. The Evolving Eververse. Last year, we thought long and hard about Eververse and how we wanted to change the strategy around microtransactions in Destiny. As some folks have pointed out, MTX is a big part of a live game. That's not to say MTX funds the studio or pays for projects like Shadowkeep. It doesn't wholly fund either of those things, but it does help fund the ongoing development of D2. This allows us to fund creative efforts we'd otherwise not be able to afford. For example, the Whisper of the Worm's ornaments were successful enough that it paid for, dev cost-wise, the 0-hour mission to be constructed. That shit matters. That is so honest. That is so fucking honest. I love it. The storefront, which we launched alongside Season of Opulence, is the first part of a strategic shift that we're making in MTX. This decision to run old content in bright engrams instead of making new bright engrams was another part of the shift. We want to believe that players would rather buy things they like from the store. Earlier this summer, we detailed a bunch of changes coming to Bright Dust and Eververse. The storefront is going to get another round of changes this fall too. We're going to move that to the director, so you don't have to go to the tower and see tests to interact with it. We're giving some class-specific content. So if you're on your Titan looking for Titan ornaments with smaller shoulders, you'll see Titan armor on the storefront page. We're also looking to make it easy, store sub page. We're also trying to make it easy to make it so the pieces you've already acquired are given a set of reduced silver price per set. For instance, if you are 3 of 5 Optimacy on your Titan, the cost to finish the silver will be reduced 60%. Nice. There are some other philosophies we haven't made explicitly clear. We have made deliberate choices related to cosmetic items that have not come from gameplay. Gameplay rewards are where you get items, power mods, perk combinations, stats, triumphs, and titles. The aesthetics for armor blurs the line. We want players to get cool armor from activities in a world that seems thematic to where they were acquired. Cosmetic items are universal ornaments, weapon ornaments, shaders, ships, sparrows, emotes, and finishers, which will typically come from the store. There are exceptions, but in generally speaking, this is how we think. We're going to try and continue. We're going to try and separate capability in gaming from vanity. Armor 2.0 and universal ornaments are big parts in this separation. That's also why finisher perks are mods that can be stockpiled into equipment, so their aesthetic can stand alone. As always, we welcome your feedback and thoughts. Season of Opulence Part 3. The Menagerie is sweet. Have you ever been to an amazing party like the Super Bowl? And it's the kind of party, there's an incredible spread of snacks, incredibly comfortable seating, AV system, and a TV that makes you jealous, and super sweet people to hang out with. Once you've been to this party, the Super Bowl party anywhere else never feels the same. Invite me back someday. I don't know who that is. This is how I feel about Escalation Protocol. Once I had the feeling of running around in public bubbles, fighting giant bosses with a bunch of players public gameplay never really felt the same. At its peak, you had a bunch of players slaying big old bosses. Escalation Protocol is one of the best things ever we've added to Destiny 2. I agree. The Menagerie is a 6-player match-made activity where you made progress no matter what is awesome. It's learning by watching mechanics, which means you don't require communication between players. The way groups make progress, even if they don't kill a boss, means the real efficiency gain is learning and executing the fights quickly. Hasapico, beloved by Callus and also beloved by me, feels like a great translation of the World of Warcraft's Hugin the Unclean into an action game. There's also a lot to talk about with the Menagerie, and I'm going to close the activity part here. We love the Menagerie. It's a great middle ground to spot for 6-player activity pyramid with raids at the top. EP is a great base. We want more activities like this, but the context of what we've learned in the way we can do it, and in a way that we can better support them over the long term. Season of Opulence, Part 4. The Chalice of Opulence, and somehow even more Season of the Drifter Thoughts. Having some ways to target and farm specific gear in Destiny is great. We did this with Black Armory, but with a very, very long character-specific attunement questline for Fortress that was a bit much. We made Opulence attunement account-wide as a result. Good call. The Chalice was an even bigger version of targeting rewards. Players could unlock different armor, weapons, and then select their masterwork role. Pause on Chalice thoughts. We'll come back to Chalice. Let's talk about how we are going to build the game. About how we build the game. While content in Destiny is released serially, it's largely developed in parallel. For instance, while Forsaken was in its final few months, Black Armory was well underway, and Season of the Drifter was in development while Black Armory was being built, etc. For years, people have wondered, why doesn't Release X do the thing Content Y did? Get it together, Bungie. This is one of the reasons why. So even though the Menagerie is sweet and the Chalice is great, while Shadowkeep was being built, the Menagerie and Chalice hadn't been released, so we didn't know how players would react. Because we have to build so much, we frequently find ourselves having to place many bets at the same time. This has paid dividends at times. We discover new and awesome things like Escalation Protocol or Menagerie. This has also resulted in a few things that feel like setbacks. An example of a setback is the reward chase during the Season of the Drifter. There were a bunch of super awesome things in Drifter, 1-2 punch, last man standing. But the path to them wasn't clear, like in Black Armory or with the Chalice. We didn't do a good enough job rewarding players for their time and giving them clear paths to some of the sweet weapons in the release. If we had a do-over with the season's reward, we'd probably drop armor directly from Prime and use the Reckoning combined with Menagerie learnings, fail-forward mechanics to let players chase rolls on weapons that they could love. While I got pretty lucky with a rapid hit kill clip spare rations, I personally had more fun chasing my Kindled Orchid or my Ostringer. Unpause. Back to Chalice. Push 1 if you want to give Luke a big hug. Chalice isn't perfect. Being held hostage by the rune you want to drop from a Striker Crucible to go to the weapon or armor is pretty frustrating. But having more ways in the game to pursue loot in a deterministic fashion while preserving the hunt for a great role is something we want to explore. Things left unsaid. Unsaid-ish while looking back. There's a lot of awesome stuff we didn't spend time talking about. Tribute Hall, Lumia, Drifter Cinematic with Taken Captain, lore books, Vanguard Drifter Choice, etc. Full disclosure, I'm almost always going to focus on opportunities for improvement rather than celebration. We're in the midst of Solstice of Triumphs, so the learnings from those are still bubbling up. We're looking ahead. The rest of the director's cuts are going to focus on Shadowkeep and the changes we're making this year. Here are some topics that will be included. Supers in PvP in Destiny 2. Armors, stats, mods, and trade-offs. Powerful sources, prime engrams, and the world, damage numbers and damage stacking rules, and of course, more. I know there is a lot to read because it was a lot to write, and I appreciate you taking time to make it this far. Like all things with Destiny, it's a journey. The next two parts of this journey will we will look at the RPG and combat game. See you soon, Luke Smith. Stars. It's a set of aspirational goals to help guide the team to create better experiences players love Destiny. It's a simple way to describe how we're thinking about the game. Even when it's true, there'll always be work left to do. Fun fact, Hygen the Unclean was often called the dance boss in WoW. And Hasapiko means the butcher's dance in Greek. It's a little nod back at Blizzard's Xur reference. This was phenomenal. 31 minutes to read the whole thing. So if you're watching on YouTube, thank you. So my personal thoughts on this might be better parsed out in a longer video. There's a lot to unpack. But I think to close this out, I'll say this. Luke, thank you so much for being honest. Bungie, thank you so much for being honest and so incredibly transparent. There are two things that stood out to me. The articulation of your design goals for encounters and the incredible bottom line value that that MTXs can provide to your game by giving a real world accounting of the value of how many people buying this ornament essentially paid for the thing that they loved in game. And I know that's not what you were going for, but this is an incredible reference point for people when they are looking at why should I buy this? What does this do for my game? And real answers like that are huge. Also, this improvement, and this, I'm trying not to break everything down. This improvement of reducing silver costs based off what you already have is huge. I'm also incredibly happy that you talked about the fact that you developed the game in parallel. Something that obviously I have learned by going up to Bungie the various times that I have and learning about your design philosophy, but feels good to see that out in the open. You know, I got to learn a little bit about how you all developed stuff when I was there for Black Armory, and it definitely surprised me. So, so in a good way. And it reminded me of how hard you all have to work to keep the cadence up that you do. So thank you, Luke Smith. Thank you, Bungie. Thank you for the incredible openness and honesty of this. I hope you had fun time listening. I hope I kept you great company in your car. I will probably throw this up on the podcast as well. So that way people can listen to it if they want to. And I'll even make the audio available in many places as I can. So yeah, thank you so much. And if you're watching on YouTube, I appreciate you, and we'll catch you next time.